Welcome back to the Firewood Addicts podcast here on my channel. You see behind me my new logo. It's backwards, but it's not as you can see it centered, but the top says Firewood Addicts Nation. These stickers, you can see the log, the chainsaw, and a fire. Jonathan did an excellent job on this logo, and then we got the intro piece and the exit that you see later on in this episode. Excellent work, worth every money that we paid for it. So I hope that you enjoy it. So to give a little bit more professionalism to the podcast, but yeah, so we have a very special guest today. Today we have someone local in my neighborhood. I was able to get him last minute, so we so we will go ahead and say hi to our guest. Go say hi. All right, so our special guest's name is Trav. So he's local, like I said, and yeah. So let's let him to introduce himself. So Trav, let us know what is your background, so I can hear you. You want to know my background? Okay, yeah, sure. I've experience in the nonprofit realm, specifically in the international development humanitarian realm. I earned 2 master's degrees, one in international development, another one in like peace building, conflict resolution. I've worked in several countries in Africa, the Gambia, Senegal, Kenya, and most recently in South Sudan. I've touched foot in Ethiopia and Guinea Conakry. And so, yeah, I've worked in and out of Africa. I find myself back in my hometown consulting for various nonprofit contracts. And my forte right now is finding donors for nonprofits and connecting donors to nonprofits. So have the connection now. So if you are a nonprofit that you need funding, let me know. But yeah, that's my background. Cool. Thank you, Trav. So tell me how your background, your history in firewood, and how did you get into it? Yeah, thank you. When I was younger, my parents we burned wood in their wood stove to stay warm. It was not like our main source. I think we had heaters too, like wall heaters in the house. But I guess maybe it was our main source of heat. But we didn't split. We didn't cut up or anything. My parents usually ended up finding a person to deliver us wood. I remember coming home from school, and there would be a pile of like 1 quart of wood split in a driveway, and we had to frantically get that all stacked so the driveway was clear. So I remember coming home from school and starting fires in the wood stove so the house was warm for the late afternoon into the evening and overnight. But I never did any chainsaw cutting, learn how to do any of that, never split with an axe or really with a splitter. Yes, that's my background as a young kid, and I got into firewood splitting and just because when I went to go buy a house, the house had a chimney. So I got a used stove and put that in, and I being a thrifty person that I am, um didn't want to pay for wood, especially if there's free wood around. So why not just produce my own firewood? And then I figured out that I had, I think, too much. So then I tried to sell it, and that's how I ended up selling wood and watching YouTube videos and seeing people sell in bundles. So that's how I made my firewood stand. I believe I got the gist of how to design and build my firewood stand from Dan from back 40. But I didn't paint it green. Mine's gray. And that stand has definitely went through its evolution over the past few years. But and yeah, so cool. Thank you, Trav. I appreciate that. So then that's a very interesting background in terms of your history with firewood. But how did you know that you were an addict or obsessed with firewood? I'm curious. I it was recently the last like late last year that we had like friends come over during the holidays. My wife's best friend came up from Colorado, and I know that her house has a wood stove. And I remember vividly talking to her there, and I was asking her about firewood, and she looked at me like I was nuts. Like, why would I want to engage with you about my wood stove in my house and firewood? And do I do I do I make my own firewood, or do I buy it? And it was at that point that I eat, live, and breathe firewood, especially when I'm now in, in between contracts. I have more time to be out in the yard, and I think about it constantly. I know I dream about it. I remember a few months ago, I had a dream where I was cutting firewood with what a well-known a firewood YouTuber. I won't name names or the channel, but I woke up and I'm like, that didn't happen, right? So yeah, it was super weird. So that's when I knew that I was definitely obsessed um with firewood and addicted to it, where I crave it in my soul and my body. I'm thinking about it constantly. And yeah, so I'm very thankful for being on your podcast. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I thank you for being on. So now that we have the intro locked in, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the podcast with our questions. Um, you mentioned you have a wood stove in your home. Can you give more detail of what you burn, how you burn, and maybe how much you burn in your home per year? Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. I tend to hoard the harder woods for my own personal burn, but then again, I don't need the hardwood in the fall or in the late winter. So I'll start burning in like October, maybe like mid October, and I'll go all the way through probably to mid April. So my wife is from Vermont, and she likes a very hot house, and I want to be liberal on my burning and not have to conserve wood. So I usually will burn like cookies that are mixed between soft and hard in the fall. Use my premium hardwood in the heart of the winter, and then kind of and then to decrease that and get back into softer woods. Yeah, so I think I mentioned one time I go through like 4 cords a year. I don't know. I should calculate that better. I actually don't know, so I'm gonna go with 4 cords um per year. Yeah. Cool. Thank you for sharing that. That is very interesting. And you mentioned your firewood stand. Can you just give a synopsis of what you sell and how you sell? Yeah. So I sell. So I figured out quickly when I decided to sell. I don't have that big of a yard, and I don't think I will ever have enough inventory to sell cords. I do have. I just started out selling cords in the past, so I have a few customers that are kind of like grandfathered in, and I would try my best to supply them with like 1 cord a year type thing. But for the most part, my bread and butter is my firewood stand, where I sell $5 mixed softwood bundles for 5. I sell racks of wood, 2 types of racks. One, it would be like a 30-piece average, the medium split um, rack for 30, and then have a bonfire rack, and those are about they're like bigger pieces that you use for like a bonfire, and so those are $1 a piece log, so that would be $30 for that rack. Then I have two types of cedar kindling bundles. One I call my premium kindling. That is like one cubic foot, and it's all straight grain, no knots, no holes. It's all straight. And then I have a half cubic foot uh, cedar kindling bundles that have like bark in them and holes and knots and stuff like that. For five. And so and that's pretty much all I sell at the stand. But I have figured ways to sell any type of wood. When I do sell bulk, I sell it by the ICB tote cage, and I toss it in. I do sell a lot of cedar chunk wood that I get from my cedar guy. Um, and he's coming again soon, I guess. I think maybe like tomorrow morning, I believe. To give me some more cedar chunks, and those are big sellers. And then I sell the same chunks in the tote, and I sell them in like a large garbage can. So the tote goes for 90 for delivery, or with delivery. The garbage can sell for 30 a piece, and I have chunks, and then I have like kindling pieces of of cedar for 30 as well. Yeah, if it's wood, I can figure out a market to sell. I think that's the most, I mean, the average of type of wood I sell, more or less. And sales are up right now, which is good. All right, all right. So it sounds like you have found your niche market over there where you sell your firewood. In can you maybe tell me what prices of a third of a cord would go in your area right now? I think it would be between 50 if you don't know what you're doing and selling whatever to like maybe like 120. Now we're getting into springtime, summertime, so wood maybe become cheaper. But I think during the fall, winter, I think it was going for, I don't know, average like, I don't know, like between 70 and 90 ish. I would say it all depends on the seller. It's all over the place, and then as the winter progressed, I think the prices went up, which is crazy. Yeah, yeah, it's crazy how prices will fluctuate, and then per even one location and throughout the U.S. Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts. Um, yeah. So next question: what is, in your opinion, what is the best type of wood to burn, and why? And what is the worst type of wood to burn and why? I think here, um, when I first started out, I had access to locust, and that was awesome wood. I didn't understand the awesomeness level of that wood until like a year or two later. I I burned that wood in my own wood stove. I don't think it was fully seasoned yet because it was so dense, kind of like oak. Um, but it was definitely a good wood. I did sell some too for, I'm sure, dirt cheap because I didn't really know what I was doing then. But yeah, I think that was the best because it definitely had some good BTUs, and just lasts forever. And it was just a hardy wood. It smelled terrible when we took it down. That's one thing I do remember that wood. It has those little spikes on it too, little thorns. That was nasty, but yeah, it was good wood. Worst type of wood, I would say between poplar and cottonwood. Cottonwood is terrible. I am starting. So I'm going to try to sell cottonwood in my mixed bundles of firewood. So we'll see how that goes when that gets seasoned. But that just wood because it just doesn't burn very good, and it doesn't produce a lot of heat, and it's just, and with the cottonwood, like it smells like when you touch it, your hands smell like manure. It's just terrible. So that's just my opinion on uh on firewood. Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, I'm curious just to follow up with that. I'm curious to in your area, what do people call a third of a cord? Yeah, I think it's just a third of a cord. I don't think, maybe face cord sometimes. Like I use face cord um to people who know firewood when I'm talking to them like locally, but I'm pretty sure it's a third of a cord. I don't think truckload. I'm not sure. Like a guy came by, like he pinged me on Facebook Messenger, from my ad at the stand, and he's like, "How much for a truckload?" I'm like, "Well, I don't sell large quantities. Like you can buy a few racks." Oh well, okay. So then, anyway, so I sent him my address, and then I met him outside. He's like, "Well, I want to kind of fill up my truck bed. So how would I do that?" I'm like, "Well, I don't sell cords or like a third of a cord, but how about you buy several racks and that'll be enough." He's like, "Okay, well, I've ha-" so he told me that he had $100, and so to load up to sell him whatever it would be, $100. So I scrambled to figure to bring him five $20 racks, right, for his truck, and I'm not prepared because I only have one rack in my stand, and I want to, if I'm going to be fairing wood, to save that one there. So I get him his wood and he's satisfied, but he's like, "Well," and then if so I give him my card to come back. He's like, "Yeah, well, let me know if you ever want to sell cord to me." I'm like, "Well, I don't sell cords," and like he just looked puzzled. Like if you ask me why I don't sell in bulk or in large quantities or in cords, you in my opinion, you're answering your own question. Like you want to buy a cord of wood or a third of a cord for X amount of money because you know that by buying in large quantity, you're getting more bang for your buck as opposed to like buying a bundle from me for $5 or a bundle from the local gas station for upwards of $10 plus. So you're saving money by buying in bulk. So, but so you want to save money, but I want to make money. So I don't sell in large quantities for that purpose. I hope that makes sense to your viewers and for you, Travis. But that's uh anyway, just back to the selling. But to your question, instead of record. Yeah, Trav. Yeah, I definitely feel your pain, bro. That's a hard situation to have people understand that concept. But thank you for sharing what people in your area, in your region, call one third of a cord. Yeah. Next question. Next question. Yeah. Do you have experience with gas and or electric splitters? And what is your preference? Yeah, I never ran a splitter prior to owning a house. I don't think, since we never like split our own wood like per memory. Um, so I ran the first gas splitter that I got from my parents a few years ago, the one that I have in my yard. And so yeah, that's gas, and that's fine. It's a 27 ton whatever that means, uh splitter. And then I do have an electric kinetic splitter that I used for my kindling. So yeah, I have experience in both gas and electric splitters. I wouldn't mind buying a second electric splitter, just for fun. So we'll see how that goes. I have one pending right now that I may pick up, but I figured more tools in the arsenal would make sense. Sounds good. Sounds good, Trav. I appreciate that. Awesome. I like it. Yes. So next question. Let's check it out here. Moisture meters, or do you bang two pieces together? How do you measure if your wood is seasoned, or do you measure it all? Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've done the bang test before, and I've used my lips. I've seen on YouTube, and I just go by time as well. But because I sell firewood and I want to sell quality firewood and I would like to be as transparent and honest as possible with my customers who buy my firewood. So yeah, I do have moisture meters, and I use them. I have several brands. Um, I have a handful for Harbor Freight that I have. but it wasn't Harbor Freight. They're so small. I end up losing them. Like I put them in a pocket and in a coat or a shirt pocket, and I take that off and I put it somewhere. So I know I have one in my truck where right at my feet where I get in that truck, but the seat there, I have one there, and I know I have one at my firewood bundler jig. I have one there. I found one the other day in my wood pile that I lost a few months prior. So yeah, I have meters and I use them. Yeah, you should too. Yeah, Trav. Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. Uh, to have a motion meter and use it, it makes sense. And I know that there's a big debate on social media and in groups about using a motion meter, how they don't work or they're useless. Just use the old bang method or just go by time. But for people who sell and want to sell quality, to have a motion meter or two or nine in your tool chest, it just makes sense to me. So, yep, I agree with you, buddy. I agree. Move on to the next question. I want to know about. So, do you obviously one cord is 128 square feet, right? Or so. Um, do you stack cords, or how do you measure cords to make sure that you are at 128? Yeah, because I don't sell cords. I don't need to know the 128 the 128 figure, and because I use pallets, and I try my best to get the 48 by 48 ones, or at least the 48 by 40 ones, but they're really hard to come by. Sometimes they're just odd sizes, so I don't get the full 8 feet of pallet length, and sometimes I don't get the full like 4 feet risers. That and because the yard's so kind of small and condensed, I usually go up past 4 feet to go up to like maybe 8 feet tall or so with my stacks. So I don't go by that 128 figure when I just stack. I just stack whatever. Um, but if I am going to a seller of firewood for a good deal on split wood, and we're gonna be we have to measure it. If it's not already pre-measured on their site on their property, having to stack it in my parents' trailer, and so that trailer is like a 5 by 10 by I think like 3 feet or so. I forget what I forget, I forget what the math was on that exactly, but to to multiply three numbers together to get 128, there's like more or less average to get the 128 figure. There's more than one way to do that. Just to make and then make sure that you go by that and to measure it. I mean, there's apps out there to measure, to figure out the calculations, but just use a calculator on your phone. Just type in like three numbers and kind of gauge based on the dimensions of your trailer or your truck bed, or if you're in the yard to measure like a face cord of what that is, and to kind of gauge to get to that the 128, or to gauge what 1/3 of a cord would be or half a cord would be. Just you use simple math and you figure it out. Yeah, man, I hear you. I hear you. There's definitely ways to get that 128 figure. It does not have to be always the 4 by 4 by 8, because not all trailers are going to be like that. Not all trucks are going to be that. Not all yards are going to have a stack that's going to be exactly 4 by 4 by 8. So yes, thank you for that insight. Let's see the next question here. What do we got? What do we got? Yeah, here we go. Do you currently stack your firewood? Do you throw it in a pile? And then either one of those, do you cover? Yeah, thank you for asking. Where I live in Washington State, its nickname is the Evergreen State, and I live on the west side of the Cascade Mountains, where there's literally a rainforest um, on the west side of the state. So we're known for rain here. We're known for rain, so I cover my wood as much as I can. because I want it to dry. I want it to dry as fast as possible. I know there's the people out there who don't feel the need to cover the wood, and that's fine. Just I want to make sure my wood dries because I need to cycle through my inventory in my yard. I currently stack my wood because of space, as well as I think stacking looks beautiful. It looks amazing. Yeah, I do. I have I may try to use piles or make piles. I think I have a plan in my head of how I'm going to go about that. But even if I'm going to pile, I'm going to probably cover it. I want to find a way to cover it. I don't I don't see how I cannot cover my wood and have it dry. I do have a stacked pile that's half covered, half not, and that's my experiment pile. So I hope come the fall that would be the uncovered portion would be dry enough to burn in my own house because that's going to be personal wood. I don't play around with not covering wood that I'll be selling because I need to make sure that that's dry, um, and or in the process of drying. So yeah, so currently all my wood is stacked, and currently all my wood is mostly covered. I could do a better job of covering my wood, but I do what I can. Sounds good. Yeah, that makes sense to me. That makes sense. Yeah, so let's get into some a chainsaw talk. Do you what do you run in your chainsaws? Are you running ethanol free? Are you running premium? Or are running your regular gas in your chainsaws? Yeah, I think I converted a year or so ago to buying e-free gas. But the only issue with doing that is I didn't. It's only at the local co-ops that have the gas, and it's kind of far away, like not within my area. So I was going to, as of late, go to buying premium that I could buy locally because the cost of premium um, gas is about the same as ethanol free gas. So but it would just be closer, it'd be easier for me to get the premium gas than it would be for um, the the E free. So, but because I run my saws all year long. There are some small gas engines in my garage that are seasonal, like the blower, the weed eater, the lawnmower, and those could probably use E-free gas in them. But my gas tanks in my garage don't sit full or half full for very long. Maybe like at most a month, which I think would be enough time to get some moisture, some water in there. But I so far so good. I mean, like knock on wood, right? But yeah. So far I'm just using E-free. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. Sounds good. It's good. It's good to at least be cognizant of what you're putting in to your saws, and you don't leave just a gas tank laying around for too long, right? Yeah, that makes sense. Um, when you're bucking up your rounds, how are you measuring? Are you using like a tape measure, like some chalk, or like by eyeing it, or some laser machine thing? What are you using? Yeah, I started out using the zip tie method. No, no, I take that back. I think I use my bar because I was using like an 18-inch bar on my older my homeowner Craftsman. So yeah, I would use it as a gauge and kind of like put it on the log and then kind of go back 2 inches, and that was my mark. And then after watching YouTube, I adapted the zip tie method from Chris at in the Woodyard, and that didn't really work for me. I use all his tips and tricks of how to use it, and I don't know, it didn't work for me for whatever reason. And so I broke, and then I was gonna use that make a jig or whatever, like a tool device, and use a magnet with like some sort of like a pipe on the end of my chainsaw. And then I don't know, I lost time and interest, so I just ended up buying one. I think it's called the AccuView. I don't know if that's right or not. I forget the name, but it's like a magnet rod thing that you put on the end of your bar, and that you measure like the end of it will kind of sit in the groove as you kind of cut in the log and kind of go down the log that way. And that seemed to work fine for me. I want to keep more or less a uniform length pieces at my firewood stand because I want to sell quality. But obviously, when you're burning your own home, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, that's what I use currently. I would be interested in using that laser mark thing, but I think that's over my budget right now. Yeah, man, I definitely hear you on using a marker. I think it's definitely a money well spent, whatever tool that you can buy to make sure that your cuts are uniform. But I think as we go along through experience, you're just gonna kind of eye the log or the round and know that's going to be more or less at 16. So, cool, man. Yep, sounds good. Let me ask you, what is your what saws do you run, and what is your preferred go-to saw right now? Yeah, I think it was last year I broke down and bought a bigger saw. I bought my Husqvarna 460 that has 60 cc's. Before then, my biggest saw was my 18-inch Craftsman. I think that has like 50 something cc's, maybe 45 cc's, maybe it's 50 something. I forget. Anyway, um, and that has served me well, but I needed to make that jump to be more effective in my wood yard. So I broke down and bought um, my my 460, and that has served me well. Um, I got this cheap saw from Amazon a few months ago, and that it says on the box that it was 63 cc's. So I don't really know. It's probably less than that. But that saw has done well for me. I'm not sure if I mean, I always want to buy more saws now, but I don't know what the next step is for me. I think soon I need to get into a higher CC level. I think probably like a 70 CC is gonna be my next my next leap. It's just a matter of cost, but I think I mean so those are saws I would mostly use right now. I have other saws, but bigger ones are one I use for bucking and such. But to your question, um, Travis, the my go-to would probably be right now, um, uh, my 460. Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. I was wondering what you're running, and I I I have seen ads about those cheaper higher CC saws on Amazon and eBay and such. So I would be curious to talk to you maybe a little later off camera about your cheap your cheaper saw. But I hope that works out for you. But it's good to have a go-to saw that you know is well maintained and will fire up when you want to use it. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. What as a follow-up to that question, what fuel mix are you running in that cheaper saw that you got from Amazon? Yeah, so the manufacturer wants people to run a 25-to-1 mix in that saw. It's called the Pinkway, if you want to know. And so I mixed 25, and that definitely smokes a lot. I think that's too. It's just I don't know if that's the correct um ratio. So I think I'm gonna go to 40-to-1 in the next batch of a fuel mix that I make and go from there. But yeah, it's a kind of it's I don't know. I ask other people who I know and I get varying answers, but I think that the consensus or the average is or average viewpoint is going to be at 40-to-1. So we'll see how that goes. Thank you for sharing that, Trav. Interesting. Hope that goes well, and and, and it can be posted on that Pacific Saw. So I guess so now that's all the main questions, the meat and potatoes of the interview. But of course, at the end of the podcast, I want to leave my interviewees the chance to have the floor, share with us anything you want to about firewood, whether it be pro tips, lessons learned, anything that I didn't want to mention, anything that you want to share, that anything about firewood. Here's the floor for you, Trav. Go. Yeah, thank you, Travis, for that for this opportunity to share. I think a lot of things that you you have that you share on your channel, Travis. I would mimic and would agree with you wholeheartedly about your how you sell firewood, how you do firewood. I think on the maybe on the topic of free wood is the best wood. I think a lot of us are so gung ho and focused on um, if you get free wood, then that's more money in your pocket, as opposed to if you buy wood, if you buy logs, if you buy a truckload of or a a dump trailer load of rounds, whatever cost it be, that's money out of your pocket. And when you go to sell that wood, that's less money that you're going to be making in in a profit. But I think a lot of us have to readjust and recalculate. If you're going out on the roadside or going to some place or marketplace that you found that has free rounds, that's time out of your day getting that wood. That's time, that wear on your vehicles, whether that's your truck or your trailer or both, gas, and then whatever equipment that you're using to get that wood from that yard onto your vehicle. Whether you may need to bring a chainsaw, you may need to bring a wedge and a maul to get those rounds pieces to be small enough to load. That's time. The time out of your day, and that time and effort has to count for something. Maybe you can calculate like what you charge per day labor wise, and then and that would be deducted by the profitability of that wood being sold months later. I think that we need to um, as firewood sellers uh, to take that into account, whether and maybe to entertain the idea of buying logs, buying poles, buying rounds, whatever, or even connecting with the local tree service company or the arborist and saying, "Hey, I'm local here. Come to my yard, dump it, and I'll buy you lunch. I'll give you some money for gas." Give them some incentive to want to come to your yard. And yes, that's going to still eat out of your pocket, but that's less time that you are out searching for wood. And they may have better equipment that can give you more wood than your small trailer or your half size a truck bed could hold. So yes, free wood is good, but I think that we need to maybe to reassess how we get wood into our yard. I know that I am, and I think that would be more be it will be money well spent and would save me time. Maybe another thing that I would like, maybe just a point that I want to share is you don't need the newest, brand new, badass saw out there to um, compare yourself to the big boys or to have whatever they have. The best saw is the one that is running in your hands. It doesn't matter what brand it is, as long as it's running. You could always go bigger and better, but based on your budget, whatever is running and in your hand that's cutting is the best saw that you have. I'll just say that. I'm not a brand loyal guy. I have all the brands right now in my garage, um, and some running, some not. But I'm not picky. Whatever runs and is being maintained and is cutting the wood that I need to cut is the one that I am gonna go with. So yeah, don't be stuck on being brand loyal just because, or to have the biggest baddest saw, just to compete or to look good from with your friends or your firewood buddies, to cut with what you can cut with. And I guess my last point, I don't want to make this interview too long, but maybe the last point would be, if you're used to a splitter and that's all you know, and yeah, maybe you've used an axe maybe a few times in the past, but it's just faster and easier to use the splitter. I would say try an axe again. There's something about, if you're like fellow addict or you're obsessed with firewood, there's something about the feel of a wood handle, maybe plastic, I don't know, but a good solid wood handle and a sharp edge on an axe that feels amazing in your hands. If you see these firewood videos channels on YouTube, the people who are using an axe are not using gloves. Okay, they're not using gloves, using the bare hands, right? They want to feel the axe in their hand and to feel the raw power nature of those axes as you come down to split the wood, or even the maul to come down. So I would say most mauls would be plastic handles, but just to feel the power and the vibration, right? And not needing the insulation of the gloves. You get more grip to power with your hands on the handle than you do with gloves. But that's just my opinion. But I think for a lot of rounds, yeah, put them on your processor, put them on your slitter, and get them slit up and gone. But if you're looking at a round and it's straight grained, there's no branches, there's no knots, take out that axe and start going from the outside in, or get your maul and break it up in smaller chunks and just have at it. There's something about a good workout with an axe that just feels good. And you look at that pile of wood when you're done saying, I did that by hand. I split that pile by hand, and that was me. As opposed to you splitting this other pile and look at that like, well, I did split that, but that was with my splitter or my processor. There's more of like a self-worth and confidence in a pile that you split by hand versus one that you use a machine to do. Granted, not all wood should be split by hand. If it's gonna be naughty, nasty, crotchy, yeah, throw that on the splitter and knock it out. But there's rounds like you've seen Buck and Billy Ray. Let's take a round that's gonna be straight grain, and he's just hacking the crap out of it, and he's done in a flash, in an instant. But that same round and splitter, especially if you have a really slow cycle time, split it back and like it's slow, right? So I'm gonna I would say this: some rounds, some wood are faster split, not bucked. I'm not going into the whole processing bit. Besides just what we're talking now about splitting. Some rounds are easily or can be easily and faster split with an axe. Some are easier and faster to split with the machine. So to judge that, look at the round. If all straight grain, no branches, hack at it with your axe, and you'll be done as fast as no time, and it'll feel great. But you look at it and there's branches poking out, you see knots in there. Just throw that puppy on the splitter and get done with it. But I mean, you can go back and forth too, or have a pile that's all straight grain and do that by hand. Have a pile that's all knotty and do that with your splitter. So this is my opinion. Just three things that I want to point out. But yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Trav. I appreciate those three things. I agree with you. And I think that all of us learn something or a reminder about firewood and the tools that we use and how we go about the whole firewood processing and gathering part. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. So with that said, thank you, Trav, for being on the show. All right, Trav. Cool. Awesome, buddy. So yeah, if I hope that you enjoyed this interview. If you want to be on the podcast, go ahead and email me. My email address is within my the about section of my channel. Now that we have the logo going on here, yes, I have stickers. I have stickers for the channel and I have stickers for the podcast right here. So if you want some stickers, let me know. But if you want to support the channel to get stickers, you can go to my Buy Me a Coffee account, throw me some love, and I will send you some stickers your way. You may see my stickers now on a few other Firewood channels. So thank you to him for my new logos and new professional look for the podcast. So hope that you all um, like those aspects of the podcast series now. So we'll have those up now. So yeah, so thank you. Let me if you have any more questions I want to ask people on the podcast, let me know. And I want to entertain them. I think I have some ideas, but I want to. I think we're getting good at having the follow up questions where each episode with people coming on the podcast is different, which awesome. So I hope that having Trav on here was good for all of you. But anyway, thank you for viewing. I appreciate it. So next time, rock and roll. Be safe. Keep cutting. Cheers.